Man, guys, I love Mushoku Tensei. I want to start the video off saying that right away. I love this series. Man, it's so good to have our boy Rudy back in this episode. But I think the best part of it to me was the fact that we really sit with him this episode. And what I mean by that is this episode really tackles depression throughout the entire thing. We really sit with Rudeus in these scenes, and we really feel it. Like, they don't need to tell us how he feels. They show us. And I love when series do that. You really feel the hopelessness and kind of despair that has kind of consumed Rudeus over these events that we've had in our last season. And I think it was great how they kind of tackled that in this episode. So, without further ado, let's just hop straight into it and talk about it as we watch Mushoku Tensei Season 2, Episode 1. Now, our episode today begins so somberly. Like, you really feel it. There's nothing going on. No big spectacle or anything like that. It's just characters riding in a cart to a city. And you can just feel it in the air that something feels off here. As we see Rudeus is not in a good headspace right here. And it's here we meet two other characters, Susanna and Sarah, who are riding along with him. As Susanna decides to finally speak up and asks him, you know, you've been sighing a lot. You want to tell us what's the matter? But just as quickly as Rudeus decides to say something, he quickly decides not to and pipes up again. As we see, she quickly decides to change gears and says, alright, so what brings you up north then? You're heading to a dangerous place, but you don't strike me as an adventurer bodyguard like us. Mage or not, you must still be a child. And it's here as Rudeus avoids the question again. We see that Sarah decides to snap here and tell him, you know, she's just trying to be nice to you. Is that any way to treat her? And it's in this moment, Rudeus can't help but realize that she reminds him of a certain redhead in his life. As he tells them all, I'm looking for my mother, a victim of the mass teleportation in Fitora. And upon hearing this, everybody clams up then. This was a tragedy after all. And it's here we see Susanna asks him, alright, but how will you find her? The North's a big place after all. As she tells him, you know, I could tell you about the Northlands on the road if you'd like. As Rudy says, really? I mean, if you're offering, I suppose I could. And it's here she starts explaining to him that most lands in the Northlands are poor. But the three great magical nations do pretty well for themselves. The kingdom of Renoa excels at training mages. The Duchy of Neris produces great magical implements. And the Duchy of Basharant specializes in arcane research. We're on our way to that last one now. As she adds, they've all formed an alliance to jointly advance the cause of magic. As she continues to tell Rudy everything she knows as they progress to this city. And it's here as we see Rudeus get a room at a local inn and settle himself in a bit. We see he is reflecting over the course of our previous season as he still has Eris's hair with him. And this scene is honestly kind of depressing, frankly. He just constantly keeps himself in this negative headspace so he can never get out of it. It's like an endless cycle that he just perpetually keeps himself into. And it's here as we see Rudeus go to this town's local guild, I assume. We see that he has to officially disband his party right here. And that's gotta hurt like hell. As we see, he quite literally hesitates before doing so, because this means the official end of their party. And it's here realizing that if he's gonna find Zenith, his mother, and bring her back home, that he's gonna need to make some money. So we see our boy Rudy decide to take a job that's frankly probably too dangerous for one person to take alone. And it's here all of a sudden, it looks like he has a sudden panic attack as he has to reach into his pouch to grab something to calm him down. Get used to that as we go through this episode, by the way. And it's here we actually see Susanna pop back up again as she tells him, you know, I'm sorry, kid, but I couldn't help but overhear you. So, you want to find your missing mom, but you need money, huh? That's why you want to take on this reckless job, right? As she tells him, I think that's a bad idea, because I don't like the look of you right now. You have the look of someone who doesn't care anymore, even if they die. As she actually suggests to him, alright, how about this? Why don't we take on this job together? Much to the disappointment of Sarah. And it's here as they start walking together, she starts telling him that, you know, we just got here ourselves, and there's a lot that we're not used to either. So, since we're all still getting our bearings, let's work together. And you can really tell that no matter how much Rudeus is pushing them away, that Susanna's kind of taking a liking to him right here. As she ends up telling him, you can only do so much on your own. What you need right now is more help. And the best way to do that is to join a party and survive. And this scene right here really showcases where Rudeus is at right now in his headspace, as he just can't help thinking to himself that she can dress this up all she wants, but I know she's just pitying me right now. Really showcasing that he's become a little bit cynical over the course of his journey. But he eventually does agree to form a party with them for this mission. And it's here as we transition to the next day, and we see them all meet in front of the gate of the town to start this quest. Rudeus formally introduces himself to them as Rudeus Grey Rat, Mage. And as Susanna tries to extend her hand to him to welcome him into this quest for the party temporarily, we see that Rudeus wants to take her hand, but he stops himself. He's hesitant to do so, as she just brushes it off and just starts their quest. And it's here on their way to the quest, they start introducing themselves to Rudeus as well, as we hear, I'm Susanna, Counter Arrow sub-leader and frontline fighter. As we also meet Timothy, another mage and also the leader of the party. As we meet Mimir, their healer, Patrice, another close-range fighter like Susanna, and even Sarah chimes in and says, alright, I'm Sarah. I use my bow to intercept at mid-range. And immediately, she tells him flat out, just so we're clear, I don't want you here. I'm just going along with Susanna's decision. That's it. If you screw up and get someone killed, I'll make you regret it. It's quite a warm welcome, as you can see. As Susanna has to tell her, alright, give it a rest, Sarah. Come on now. You might part ways with us and party with other adventurers someday. As she adds, you could afford to be picky in Asura, but that's not going to fly from here on out. You'd better start to learn to work with all sorts of people. And again, guys, the parallels the show is drawing between her and Eris are very prevalent, as we even see Rudeus sees Gracillin and Eris in both of them. And it's here as we transition to our next scene. It's time to go over the plan of attack for this quest that we're on, as we just hear. Alright, the Luster Grizzlies we're here to hunt have a weakness. As Rudeus says, they can't see well in the dark, right? As we just hear, exactly. As Susanna says, first, as soon as we spot the enemy, Rudeus will delay them at long range, as Timothy will thin their numbers with magical attacks. And as they try to close the distance between us, Patrice and I will be there to stop them. And it's here as we see Rudeus try to offer various suggestions on their formation about him trying to do different roles. We see that Sarah shoots him down every single time, really showcasing that she just really doesn't like him. Flat out, just frankly, she doesn't like him at all. As she flat out tells him, you're not a part of this party, so you just do what you're told. As he ends up quietly agreeing. And it's here as we see Rudeus go off on his own for a little bit. We see Timothy actually walk up to him and tell him, hey, I'm sorry about that earlier. Sarah, she's not a bad kid. She's getting a bit full of herself lately. As he adds, You really must be quite a mage, though, huh? And it's here Rudeus responds to him with probably the hardest hitting line in this entire episode, as he tells him, "These skills of mine won't bring my loved ones back." And I really like this line because it perfectly showcases just the utter despair that Rudeus is in right now. Just the utter despair that he's been wallowing in over the course of this time that he's been apart from everyone. It's really freaking sad to see someone who is so vibrant and full of life like him just be brought down to this level, honestly. And the episode is doing a great job of showcasing that. And it's here as we transition to our next scene. It's time to begin our quest. As Susanna and Sarah spot their targets, as Susanna asks her, "Do you think we can take them?" And Sarah tells her flat out, "What do you think?" Showcasing that they're ready to go. And it's here as they begin their attack. Everything starts off very smoothly and goes by the books. Everything is going according to plan right here, and it seems like this is going to go off without a hitch. But all of a sudden, our boy Rudy notices something and actually starts listening to the ground right here. And it's here in this moment we see the arrival of black grizzlies, and far more than they were prepared for. As we see that they're actually covered in mud, which kind of foils the plan that they've been using this whole time. As they decide that, yeah, we should probably retreat right here. And it's in this moment we see Rudeus freeze up right here. And as we see the grizzlies fast approaching, he flat out decides, you know what? I'm sick of this. I'm just gonna end up losing everything anyway, as he gives up. As Susanna saves him at the very last second. And it's here in this moment, as they get surrounded on all sides by the grizzlies, they all decide that, nah, we have to stay and fight. And it's here as we see all of them fighting for their lives. It's quite a brutal battle. And it's here we get my favorite scene of the entire episode, as we actually get a panoramic view of the entire fight, as Rudeus thinks to himself, why isn't anyone making a run for it? Why do I feel so uneasy? Why am I breathing so heavily? Why do I find this so exciting? And it's here as Rudeus watches this fight unfold, he finally starts to remember it again. As he says, I do get it. I know why they stand their ground and fight. As he starts to remember exactly what being an adventurer is all about. As we see him step forward and tell them all, don't worry, leave this to me. And it's here as he prepares a truly impressive piece of magic here. We see everyone here, monster included, is kind of awed in this moment. As we get a little reminder of just how amazing Rudeus actually can be. As he ends up blowing all of the grizzlies to smithereens right here. Charred bear, guys. And it's here as we transition to them peeling the pelts off of these burnt-ass bears. We see Rudy can't help but crack a little smile to himself right here. And it's here as they're burning the bodies. Susanna tells him, you know, we owe you one. If not for you, we'd all be dead now. Which is true. Very true. As we see our Rudy tell her, you know, I'm glad you agreed to bring me along. As he finally extends his hand to her, and she happily takes it. A great scene. As we even see stubborn-ass Sarah come up to him and say, thanks. I owe you one as well. And it's here as we transition to them bringing the pelts back to the guild. We see they're not exactly treated with a very warm welcome. But just like in real life, if you tell everyone at the bar that, hey, we're going to buy rounds for everyone here, everyone starts perking up immediately. As Susanna tells everyone, listen up and don't forget. This guild's got some new faces. Counter Arrow and Rudeus. I kind of love how she just kind of throws him in at the end, like, yeah, he's here too, guys. And it's here as we see everyone having a good time and enjoying themselves. We finally see Rudeus crack a smile and enjoy himself, which is honestly such a great scene. And it's here as we transition to Rudeus later that night while he's on his own, sitting in front of the fire. We see him reach into his pouch and pull out what I'm pretty sure is the panties from the first season, as he starts reminiscing again. As he says, you know, I'd forgotten about living seriously. And it's here as he quietly starts weeping to himself. He finally gets it, as he tells himself, who says I'm gonna lose everything? Who determined that? And it's here as he thinks back on his time with Roxy. He tells himself, I need to remember when I first came to this world. When she took me outside for the first time. The excitement, the amazement I felt by everything. I learned, and she taught me. And I can't betray those lessons. I've been given things I still have. Sure, I've lost something kind of important. But that doesn't mean I've lost everything. I can't sit around moping. We're far apart, but even so, I'm not alone. And it's here in this moment, he does something that, yes, is very sad, but is honestly the absolute best thing he can do for himself right now. As he takes Eris's lock of hair and throws it into the fire. And with that liberating scene, our episode ends. And man, guys, this episode was truly great, honestly. It did such an amazing job of showcasing grief and how we all deal with it in our own way. But how, at the end of the day, we still have to move forward and keep going. That's the point of it. Him burning Eris's hair here, while yes, it's a very sad scene, is a great step forward in him not completely overcoming his grief, because you're never going to fully do that, but taking that step forward that he needs to move forward in his life and not be held back by what he's lost, by remembering what he still has. And I love that scene a lot, actually. Mushoku Tensei is just a masterclass in writing, guys. It really is. And I can't wait for our season to continue, because I know it's only going to get better. But let me know your thoughts on this episode down below. I would love to hear it. And yeah, man, just Mushoku Tensei just continues to be such a great series, guys. I love it so much. So until next time, guys, I hope you all have a great day, week, month, and year. And until then, deuces, have a blessed day. And remember, keep your head held high, even on the days where it feels like it can't stoop any lower. Remember that even when it pours, there'll always be a rainbow afterwards. I will see you guys next time. Deuces.